Inside the Birds is back. What's going on? Geoff, Mosher, and Adam Caplan are here, and we're back, and so is the return, Adam, of the NFL or Eagles game preview podcast. This will be the first one of several, 17 and maybe more, as the Eagles get ready to take on the Detroit Lions in Detroit on Sunday, a rematch from last year's game, which got ugly pretty quick. Adam, it was kind of the talk this week about how that game sort of reset the Eagles right on their season and put them back on track. They went out there and really reversed course after they went and stomped on the Lions.
Yeah, it was 44-6. It was an absolute annihilation.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, they had 6 sacks, but it was way worse than that. They were down 2 linemen. Ragnow, who's hurt again. We'll get to the injuries in a second. We've got some really good stuff for the show, by the way.
Yeah.
Some really stuff we've been holding all week on matchups. A couple people around the league did us some favors just based on we talked to some pro personnel people around the league who studied Detroit tape for us because their teams have to be playing the Lions in the next 4 to 5 weeks. So
always helps.
I feel like I know this team better than the Eagles in a weird way. So yeah. The offensive line problems, they had 2 starters down. This time they might have 2 starters down. One of them we know, Big V. The backup's her, who we'll get into him later. And they just, look, Detroit's got a better roster than they did last year. There's no question.
Yep.
When the Eagles played them, they had a JV team at receiver. They've got size, they've got speed, they've got versatility. The matchup should be better, but we'll give our picks later. We'll see.
Yeah, we will give our picks. We'll get into, before we get out of here too, some of our picks, which are up on the website, InsideTheBirds.com. We did our NFL staff picks, yourself, myself, Andrew DeCecco. Really interesting, by the way. Me and DeCecco had very, very, almost eerily similar picks. Our entire AFC playoff picture was the exact same. And we had about 4 of the same postseason awards, and I don't think they were like obvious ones. So me and DeCecco must be sharing one brain. So we're either both going to look really smart or both look really stupid. That's how it goes. But it was very funny to see that.
Could be both. No, just kidding.
Or it could be both. Right.
Yeah.
To your point, the Eagles were 2-5 last year after 7 games. Then they went and beat the Lions 44-6. That's when they kind of converted to a run-heavy attack, downhill run. A lot of under center that game. 44-6. They lost the next week to the Chargers, but then they went on a sort of not a winning streak, but they would win 6 out of the next 7. And then obviously we know that got them into the playoffs. And they would go from sort of that downhill rushing attack that they showed against the Lions, and then open it up a little bit more zone read, more quarterback design runs. And so just a really interesting kind of turning point in their season. But like you mentioned, the Lions are better. They got some players back. They've got some good seemingly momentum. I don't know. I like watching the press conferences with Dan Campbell because I find him to be like brutally honest. Like apparently he talked about how the owner asked him, "What do you think?" And he said, "I think we're better than last year, but that's where we're at." Like he doesn't like sugarcoat. He doesn't downplay. He just says, "We're better and we'll see what happens." So I kind of like that I make fun of him for the devouring the kneecaps thing because I think that's so old school and tends to not really fly and work in the NFL. But he's also being a little new school. He's being coy on the play caller. We'll get into that on who's been calling. These guys they must think this stuff is like Fort Knox. I mean, I tell you,
I don't get it because he had been the play caller, as I understand it, for the offseason. So I don't know what. I don't get it. Like he fired Anthony Lynn last year, rightfully so. He did a poor job calling plays. That was just a mistake. Anthony Lynn's a good running backs coach. I don't know what that was about. The guy he should have hired is Mike Kafka. Why? They have the same agent, he and Dan Campbell. I don't know why he didn't hire Kafka. Kafka now is, that Mike now is the play caller NOC of the Giants. No, we'll see how he does. But Ben Johnson, they raved about. So that I don't get that one. If Ben Johnson's not calling the plays, I give it up with Dan Campbell. I've thrown my hands up. But they're going to be fun because they'll be better just because they have better talent. Doesn't mean I don't see them having more than 6 or 7 wins.
Right.
But as we get through the show today, and we're only 2 days away from the game, the hype this week, okay, in Philly, for those of you who are not in the area, Jersey, Delaware, Philly, in that area, it's actually ridiculous.
Do you think that's sort of why Jason Kelsey kind of came
Yes.
out and said, like, we haven't done anything. We're not. Do you think the team senses that there's a real spike in enthusiasm for this team,
Oh,
especially since the Gardner Johnson trade?
yeah. Okay. So a couple things here. First of all, I think now I know the circumstances were different in 2018 after they won the Super Bowl. There were some entitlement issues in the locker room in 2018. Multiple people with Eagles told me then,
Oh yeah.
including one player in particular, said it was just ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
How guys just thought they arrived, they got cocky. And they were a good team in 18, and I know you've said it many times. You thought that roster was better than 17, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I did.
And but Wentz had the back fracture, and they won up. Although they lost, was that the game they lost to the Saints when Jeffrey dropped the pass? Is that the game?
Yes, that would be that year. They beat the Bears on the road in the first round, and then lost
Double
to the Saints
doink
in the second.
Yeah,
round,
double doink.
Right.
Yeah. But okay, they still were good.
Uh-huh.
But it just seemed like the word around the team was that there was way too much entitlement. Hey, we've arrived, we won, we're really good. Whereas here, it's hard to evaluate that at this point. And I understand the fans should be enthusiastic. For those of you who've been with us for a while, we've been saying since May this roster is really good. It's even better than we expected. Now they got Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, for goodness sake. I know it's going to take him a little while to get acclimated to the offense. He's got to learn new defense, rather.
Right.
But just from a talent standpoint, it's right up there, top 5 roster in the NFL, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
But they got to play like they've never played a game together now in a regular season. So coaching matters here. We have to see how the coaches coach here. They have to do a better job than last year. Everybody's got to improve. We'll see how it looks, but overall, this is going to be a fun year, and it starts this week against the Lions, where they crushed them last year.
All right, and that's a perfect segue to some of our announcements. We'll be breaking down the Lions-Eagles game on Sunday morning, starting at 10 a.m., going till noon. We'll be back at Rivers Casino. We'll be breaking it down with Greg Cosell and Jason Avant. So year 3 of ITB pregame live, but really the second straight year with this cast. You, me, Jason, and Greg Cosell. A lot of people love the breakdowns and the analysis that both of those guys give along with us. And so we're bringing it back. We're really excited about that. We thank Rivers for making it happen. And of course, Greg and Jason for agreeing to come back. And now we're also unveiling something new, which is an ITB post-game show. It will feature myself, Adam, and former Eagle offensive tackle, Hall of Fame left tackle, Trey Thomas.
He's
and
back.
If you know anything about Trey,
Yeah,
because he's been on our pregame show and some other shows. He's perfect for a post-game show because he's gonna bring the intensity level up like 35 notches. And you and I get pretty intense too, especially when we see bad football. But either way, Trey is gonna bring it up a big time level. It's gonna be after the game, probably within a half hour after the game. It'll be on our YouTube channel and probably some other socials, but most people will watch it on our YouTube channel. And we're just really excited about bringing the audience, our listeners, our followers, yet another Inside the Birds production.
Yeah, this is new. This is brand new this year. We'll get to Patreon in a second. And by the way, if you're part of our Patreon community group, yes, everything is for free, not Patreon, but everything we've did before is for free. So for those of you who are part of our Patreon group, the difference is that if you want to see it live and in person at Rivers, you get the VIP treatment. We got so much for you if you decide to go, if you're part of that group.
Right.
Plus, we'll put a mic in front of you, get to ask a question. We'll go back and forth. It's pretty cool, and we have a really good setup there, and it's a great time, and I'm looking forward to this and getting Trey back in our family, man. The ITV family is super cool. He when we did the pregame show 2 years ago down in where was it, in Fishtown? Where was it?
Yeah, it was at Goose Island in Fishtown, which no longer exists. Right.
It was such a great show with the two of us and Trey and Cosell. And boy, did Trey bring the heat, man. When he was bothered about something.
Yeah, like guys who don't wear braces who play offensive line.
Yeah.
If an
Yeah.
offensive lineman does not wear braces, you're going to hear about it from Trey.
By the way, I just got my first message from one of our Patreon subscribers.
Nice.
Um, I didn't plan on even looking at this while we're taping this, but it's great.
No,
So,
listen.
so by the way, another nugget for Patreon. What we're going to do for you? We didn't even announce this yet, but I'm going to announce it now. We're going to start doing. Geoff came up with a great point. We're gonna do chats with you guys, and we'll try to give you an advance notice. We have to figure. We may just. I don't know if they have once we get enough people in there, I guess maybe we can get like a mailing list or.
Yes, we already have that actually.
Okay, because we'll send out a notice to you. Hey guys, we'll try to give you at least 24 hours. One of it, we may do it together. I might do it. You might do it alone. Whatever the case may be, we're going to do them, and I want to do them every week. I love chats. When I was a partner with Jay Glazer, we own a website called footballinjuries.com. I would do a chat every week for like 5 or 6 years. I love doing them.
Yep.
And they're fun, and it's just another thing we're going to be. We'll add other stuff too as we go along, as we take your suggestions, what you guys like and what you want. But we know the chats are great because in Discord, it's great. You get it's basically it's like a live chat room. You just go back and forth.
Yep.
And what we may do. Well, actually, I'll have my Patreon, my Discord open during the show. I'll see if there's any, if there's some questions there, we'll take them.
Yeah, absolutely. So for those again who may just be listening just for the first time, we have a channel on Patreon. If you want to go there, it's called patreon.com/inside the birds. It is a subscription channel. What we're giving is bonus exclusive content. The podcast is still going to be available to everyone. The YouTube stuff's going to be available to everyone. The pregame show, the postgame show.
That's all free.
Yeah,
right?
that's all free and normal. What we're doing is on this channel, we're giving extra shows that we're going to do once a month. We're going to do a show, like a roundtable show, kind of summarizing the Eagles and what's going on with them each month. Then we're also going to do a Q&A live stream where we're answering your questions, bang, bang, right, right in real time. And then as Adam mentioned, there's the Discord part of it where we can have live chats with people and answer their questions. Or actually, I've already started talking birds with guys. They're not even asking questions, but
I love it.
We're just like feeling out the season. So awesome. Those 3 prizes, giveaways, we're going to have people sign autographed memorabilia and have some contests. So there's a whole lot of great reasons to be involved in our Patreon channel.
One thing before we move on to get started on the preview and all the information we have. If this thing gets big enough, one of the things we were unable to do during the pandemic, I know there's still technically a pandemic, but at least we can get out and about and get in front of people these days. So once we get a good enough group of a couple hundred, particularly in the Philadelphia area, we'll wind up having an event for you guys. We'll do something down the road. But tell your friends, it's only $8 a month. It's well worth it. No one else is doing anything like this. We appreciate Patreon contacted us with this concept. I love it. I wasn't really sure what to think until I saw what we could potentially do. I'm like, oh gosh, this is a no-brainer. We have to do this.
I mean, the real luxury here is being more interactive with people.
Yes.
And not worried necessarily about spamming and things like that. People are here just to talk football and interact with us, and we can probably drop some nuggets on them at times too, using that to give our followers a little first heads up on some things. By the way, speaking of heads up on things, people are asking Q&A. It's coming back. It'll be back on,
that one too.
Tuesday morning. We expect it to be out 6 a.m. after they'll wrap up the season opener, and they'll be with us for the entire season. So welcome back to Quentin, Michael, and Jason Avant. And of course, you'll hear us on 97.5 The Fanatic starting Monday at 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock. I'm going to jump on with the drive time crew around 5:30 to get it started. A little crossover with Tyrone and Hunter and Ricky Bowe and Jen and everybody there. So it's going to be a blast. So, you want to hear us recap the game on radio, you want to call us, you want to talk to us, the number at 97.5 The Fanatic, and you can catch it on their website or their app in rewind if you don't get the chance.
So it's in summary, real quick here. So you and I together, we're on in season now, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Q&A, 6 a.m. Eastern every Tuesday.
Right.
Pre and post Sunday. We the reason why we didn't make a lot of announcements last week is we literally got the Trey Thomas agreement done Thursday afternoon. Where we wanted him back so badly. Just he moved back.
Yep.
He was coaching the IMG Academy, was it?
It was, yeah.
So, and we had to get the Q&A thing straightened out. We got that done, and we got, folks. It does not happen without your support. Trust me. It's
Absolutely.
We've told you from day one. We put the money back into the company. This is not like a get rich scheme here. We don't make a lot of money on it. The money we make, we invest back in the company.
Yep.
And we're able to pay and bring in talent. It's pretty cool. So, and we're not done. There might be something else coming. So we'll see.
There you go. All right. Let us start the breakdown of the game. I'll get into some transactions. First, I want to remind everybody, if you want the best CBD that's out there, the most organic, the most natural, go to freestonefarmscbd.com. Use the promo code ITB and you will get 20% off. That's 20% off CBD, folks. That's great. 20% off CBD using promo code ITB at freestonefarmscbd.com. All right, the Eagles had to make some transactions over the last few days. Name one, because their backup left tackle and former first-round pick broke his arm in practice somehow. And I did say to somebody, it's sort of weird how often this guy gets hurt in practice. I mean, I think when he tore his biceps, that was in practice.
Was that?
Yeah. Now he suffered a broken forearm in practice.
And he got a concussion, I think, in practice.
He did. He got a concussion earlier this year in practice, although they were only doing practice at that point. But
yeah, that's weird.
I mean, and then, but you're right. They were wearing the helmet things that were
guarding cap.
Yeah. So it's just kind of followed around Andre Dillard here, but he's going to be on IR, so he'll be out a couple weeks at least.
He's out minimum of 4. Trust me, it'll be more than 4.
Yeah, I think with a broken arm, it's going to be.
Yeah, he had surgery, so yeah, 6 to 8 to me is realistic. Yes.
Right. So they kept 10 offensive linemen on the 53. They had not, at the time of us recording this, have not made a move. I think we could both guess that LaRaven Clark is probably going to be a guy who would be.
Yeah, he has to pretty much now. Okay, so let's get into this. This is really interesting. And this is going to play into Britton Covey. Is how they want. We'll get into the punt return. I know you have some information on that from what you're hearing, but although it's interesting that Jeff Stoutland said, I don't know if you heard Stoutland on Thursday, I think it was. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but Jack Driscoll sounds like he took reps at left tackle in training camp.
Yeah.
But we know he's mostly a right tackle guard.
Yeah.
Now, Josh Schills, another thing, Josh Schills really is a guard who can play tackle if you need him to.
Yeah, he is 330 pounds.
Right. He's built like a guard. Right.
Yeah.
He's tall. Right. You're right. He's 6'6" and he's huge. But he's got a guard body and he moves like a guard. He's not really athletic.
Right.
Now, it's funny what Stoutland said. He goes, I didn't think he could play tackle here. And no. You know how he talks. It's funny. He was great on Thursday. He's the best. But so they technically now, with as we speak here Friday morning, they have 9 on the 53 because Dillard went on IR. You typically dress 7 or 8. You only dress 9 when someone's not healthy. When someone you're worried about someone lasting the game or whatever. So do they really need to bring him up, LaRaven Clark? Well, the choice is I just don't think you could go into a game with Jack Driscoll as the answer as a backup left tackle. To me, LaRaven Clark's played it a lot longer and started games at left tackle in his career. I just think it would be a mistake.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. The only issue with LaRaven Clark is that he just hasn't played at a very high level at left tackle. And he's been here for a couple of years now. And so Stoutland has seen what he can do, and he didn't even make the 53. Coaches tend to play players that they trust more so than players that may be more experienced or a higher draft, whatever it is, more experienced or maybe even slightly more talented at a certain spot, but they play players that they trust. We saw Jack Driscoll start as a rookie right tackle in game 1 against Washington back when Carson Wentz was still the quarterback because Lane Johnson got hurt. And They had Andre Dillard on the 53 at time, but Andre Dillard, despite being a first round pick, had already shown to Geoff Stoutland that he struggles on that side. So they didn't put him in. They put a rookie 4th round pick. So it wouldn't shock me totally if Geoff Stoutland is looking at Jack Driscoll as the backup left tackle over LaRaven Clark. It would not shock me. And I'm not telling you that that's definitely the right decision, but that's just, to me, a coach going with what he trusts. And that's been right in front of his eyes.
Whenever Geoff Stoutland speaks, if he thinks Jack Driscoll's a better guy for left tackle than Raven Clark, you just have to trust the guy's judgment. He's so phenomenal.
Right.
It may not make sense to most of us, but you know what? If this is what he thinks he can do, Jack Driscoll, then you ideally he's not big enough probably to do it. You'd like a guy's a little taller and
right,
but maybe stronger. But you know what? If in Stout they trust. If he says it, I mean Jack Driscoll is 6'4.5", 6'5", but he's not really built like like an athletic left tackle.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see what happens. It is, but the reason why I'm bringing this up is I guess there's a chance, based on what Stoutland said, that maybe they don't bring up LaRaven Clark,
right,
and do this. So it's something to keep an eye on. As tomorrow they have. By the way, tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern is the deadline and all roster moves have to be done. They have till Saturday to either elevate, use 1 to 3 elevations,
right,
or sign them off the practice squad, and go that way.
So the deadline's 4:00
Tomorrow.
for Friday or Friday?
Tomorrow.
Oh, Saturday. I'm sorry. Yeah, 4:00 Saturday. Okay. All right. So let's just say this: if Jordan Mailata is fine and healthy, then we don't even have to worry about this situation.
He is.
It's just
Right now
important.
he is.
Yeah, right now he is. All right. So some other moves. The Eagles re-signed. Well, they brought back Mac McCain to the practice squad. He replaces Anthony Harris, who wanted to get out. Interestingly, I don't think Anthony Harris has signed since getting out.
Friday morning, no. Now that might be a post week 1, so you don't guarantee a salary situation.
Right. Yeah.
So what's interesting is the Eagles, he had $1 million fully guaranteed on a salary. I think I don't have it in front of me. I think it might have been the signing bonus, whatever it is. So I just wonder where he thinks he's going, because he's not going to start anywhere.
No, I agree with you.
It gets him on a 53, because if when you ask out, by the way, there were no practice squad protections this week, so they couldn't block him anyway.
Right.
I don't think they could. Yeah, I think you have to have played a game. Like I think after week 1, that's when the practice squad protections. I didn't see the list. I get the list, and I didn't see it in my email. So anyway,
all right. And then, go ahead. I was going to say, all that talk that we had about how it doesn't make sense to carry 4 quarterbacks sort of it came into fruition, made us look smart, because the Eagles released Reed Sinnett and LaMichael Pirine, the running back, to sign tight end Dalton Keene and the former Bengals wide receiver Auden Tate to the practice squad. Now, Auden Tate's a big guy. Adam, he's like 6'3", 6'4", I think, 2 something.
I think he actually might be 6'5".
6'5". I wonder if they're looking at him sort of like a tight end more than a wide receiver.
Ooh, yeah. I didn't from what I understand, it is receiver. He is 6'5" even. Yeah, he's 225 to 230. The reason why he dropped in the draft to the 7th round is because he's speed is slow, but he can go get the football. He's long.
Right.
They don't really. None of their starters are over 6'1". AJ Brown is actually 6'1.5 inch. I'm not again. It's doubtful that he'll. Well, I guess Zach Pascal, if you round him off, is 6'2".
Right.
He's I think 6'1.5". But anyway, Auden Tate has always been a fascinating player. I know Greg Cosell loves him. Not loves him, that's strong. Likes it. He was liked the player.
Right.
He just was buried in the depth chart. And the funny thing is, they would get calls on Auden Tate over the years. The Bengals, they wouldn't trade. They hate trading. They're just so against it.
Yeah. Yeah, Auden Tate's had some decent production in this league, so it's kind of an interesting signing. But again, if he signed as a wide receiver, they already had John Hightower, Deion Kane, Devin Allen, and Britton Cup. They've already had 4, unless I'm wrong. Those
Hightower's
4 guys are already on. What's that?
No, Hightower is not on it.
Oh, Hightower didn't come back. It's weird. Yeah.
Nope. I was
We were
surprised
told
because
he had a decent camp. Yeah.
well, the word around the team was like, just like you said, he had a decent camp, and they thought he did well enough to come back. But Deion Kane, Kane, Allen is really just a special teamer, and if he ever gets brought up, he'll be a gunner.
Right.
Covey, clearly, we're going to get to that later about what we think might happen there. In fact, we're hearing something interesting. And then Dalton Keene, by the way, this was a stunner around the league. He had mostly 5th and 6th round grades from teams. When he went in the 3rd round, this is when Belichick drafted Devin Asiasi and Dalton Keene in the 3rd round.
Right.
It was like, people texted me when Keene was drafted, personnel guys I know, they go, "What? Bill, this is," because they don't go by a round grade, they go by number. That's how they stack their board. They assign him numbers.
Right.
But it was shocking because there was nothing in his game that suggested it. But look, they'll take a look at him. When you look at the tight ends they got Tungiai, and Kane, and then
we'll see with Tyree Jackson coming back, at some point.
PFP. So yeah, we'll see.
So it's kind of fascinating that Dalton Keene and the linebacker, our Davion Taylor are kind of teammates here. 2 guys who are overdrafted, and then now they're suffering the results of it by being on the practice squad. There was one more point I wanted to make on this. Oh, we were talking about all right, so let's get into this the return game here. The Eagles are being very, very coy about punt return, and yet Quez Watkins basically told the media he's the kick returner for the game. So it seems like they're trying to work a lot harder to leave you guessing as far as who's the punt returner. So they have a spot open on the 53 with Dillard going on IR. They didn't fill it.
This is interesting. Go ahead.
They can also elevate someone like Britton Covey to return punts, which is what he was doing in camp. But you would have thought they would have done that already because the spot has been open since Dillard's on the 53. You could sign Britton Covey to be that last, and maybe they will. But what we're hearing is that they've looked at a couple of different guys at punt return, and Boston Scott would be the likely punt returner if Britton Covey is not going to be elevated.
I mean, I know he's done.
The guy's returned 6 punts in his life. I mean, I know he's a kickoff returner, but
I know people are going to start bringing up Greg Lewis. I know it's coming.
Well, Jason Avant was the first person to remind us of what happens, just from firsthand experience with Greg Lewis in 2007, I think, when you have a punt returner back there who's not really done it, not used to it, and what can happen. I mean, Boston Scott does return kicks, and he has returned 6 punts in his career, but it just seems a little odd to me that he would be the one to emerge. Maybe they are not ready to put it in the job in the hands of a rookie free agent in Britton Covey, who did not get that many opportunities in the preseason.
Here's the thing. Scott, the last time he returned punts, he did 6 in 2019.
Yeah.
He did not return any in college.
Right.
Why would you do this? I understand he's certainly about ball security, but I know Greg Ward's hurt. He's on IR, but to me, it's a Greg Ward all over again. Just give it to someone to if they don't do,
who would you give it to?
Covey. This is what. So the reason why they cut him, they waived him, is because they didn't really get a chance to do much in the preseason. They gambled, and they were right that there was nothing on tape that would make you want to claim him. The good tape is in practice, but no one has access to that unless the Dolphins or the Browns, because they're able to have that tape because the practice tape that they had, only those 2 days, the days that they practiced together,
right?
The 2 and the 1 with the Dolphins. So yeah, we'll see. If it's not Covey, man, I'd be surprised.
Goes back to what I said. If it's not Covey, coaches, they'd go with guys they trust, and Boston Scott's reliable. He has not punt returned much, but he's kick returned. I don't think he's ever put the ball on the carpet in that regard, or if he has, it's few and far between. You already have Quez Watkins as your kickoff returner, and you're probably playing 60% of the snaps, if not more, as a slot receiver. So, I mean, you could use Gainwell. I'm not sure that Gainwell's had the greatest camp either. I don't think he has returned punts either. So I think that they're just going with a guy who's got experience and that they trust, and that Like you mentioned with Greg Ward, they know he's not going to screw it up. He may not give you a 30-yard punt return or do anything explosive, but he's not going to mess it up. It's plain and simple.
Covey is a sure-handed. He'll get you that 8 to 10 yards. Actually, his name's Michael Clay, right? The special teams
yes,
coach.
Michael Clay.
He talked about it. Well, we'd like to get 10 yards. He absolutely can do this. He's got really good short area quickness. So now, again, there's a roster tango here because, as you said, they've got a spot open. See, the only thing about Covey, you have to be careful. So let's say you don't use 1 to 3 elevations. You actually sign him off of it. Let's say he kicks butt as a punt returner. Well, you're not going to cut him because that gets on tape. Because then the only way you get him back to practice squad, because he's not vested, you have to waive him to get him back. Then he could be claimed. Whereas if you elevate him, he automatically reverts on Monday morning. So there's definitely some roster gymnastics here. It's interesting. It's an interesting note. To me, Covey makes the most sense of the world. It would be a little bit of an upset to me if they don't do this one way or the other.
I think that's fair to say. I mean, the guy is a natural punt returner. Just because he hasn't done it in the NFL, I mean, that's what he did well in college. So, in fact, you could probably argue that he's more for the NFL right now. He's probably more suited to return punts than he is being a wide receiver. So we'll see. I mean, they may do it. I'm just saying what we heard. If they don't make it, Britton Covey, that Boston Scott would be the likely guy to be the punt returner.
Yeah, and then one more thing. The other one was Kobe Smith, who was waived off IR with the injury settlement, so you're not going to see him.
Right.
And this is typically what teams do, not always, but typically. If a guy's an undrafted free agent on his IR, unless they really think this guy's got a future with him, they're going to wind up cutting the guy. Right. They can't do it without a settlement if he's on IR, but that's just what happens. And he early in camp, he opened some eyes, but then he kind of faded, and then unfortunately he got hurt. So that is it for the transactions.
And that is it. All right, so let's get into the injuries here. It's a pretty good situation for the Eagles. The guys we've already told you about in the last 2 pods. We said Miles Sanders was going to be fine. He's ready to go. He's back out of practice. He even said that he could have played in a game. Now, it's Miles Sanders, so take that for what it's worth. But I mean, he said he could have been able to push through the hamstring and play if they were playing in a real game. Jason Kelce, we've been saying for a while, is going to be ready for week 1. He's out of practice. He's not even listed on the injury report.
No,
Adam. So, I mean, he's ready to go. So that's great news for them. Really, the only ones who would probably play in the game that are nursing something is Derek Barnett with the ribs and Josiah Scott with the hamstring, and he was limited at practice. But I don't know. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say Sanders is playing, Kelsey's playing, Barnett's playing.
Right.
Josh Job's not even listed on the injury report with that. He's wearing a brace.
Yeah, I don't know if he would have played even if healthy. That's
right. Right. No, he'll be available.
Right.
The only one that they have a concern about would be Josiah Scott, as you mentioned, and I don't see him dressing. A, they have the depth, and B, this is with a hamstring. You need to get it to 100%. It's a good sign though. He's close. We were told it was about a 2 to 3 week deal.
Right.
Kind of where they're at now. So, here's the thing with Sanders, especially if you have him for fantasy. I don't know how much he could hit. This has been over a month. With his history of hamstrings and how conservative they were 2 years ago when he had that grade 2 hamstring strain, I just don't see him playing is being out this long. And I know the game's indoors in Detroit, Ford Field, but I don't know that he has his usual amount of snaps.
You think?
I don't know. To me, it's a hamstring. He's had a lot of problems with it.
Yeah, I would say though, if he's full go, then there's no reason to be ginger with him. I mean,
no, but
again,
does he
have
let's say you forecast him to get 17 touches a game. Does he need to get the usual amount? Yes, he's taking his usual amount of practice reps.
Right.
I'm just saying because he's been out for so long with yet another hamstring problem, and it's the first game of the season. He's been out for so long. I know he worked last week. He practiced 2 days last week. He's practicing fully this week. That's great. But a guy like this with these hamstring problems, man, it's just you've got enough. And plus, you got Trey Sermon. I don't know that Sermon's playing this week.
Right.
You got plenty of backs, and you just don't need to overwork him.
Right.
He brings a different juice to the run game. He's obviously the best running back. You just don't want to crush him the first couple games. There's nothing wrong with that. And here's the other problem. as an adjunct to this. Last year, they were a 2 running back backfield plus Hurts.
Right.
We still don't know what they're going to do. Like, how are they going to work the running backs in?
Can't wait to find out. It's going to be a big topic of conversation on both the pregame and the postgame show on ITB. So let's talk about Lions injuries because those are a little bit more
Yeah.
severe. Our good friend, former Eagle, Big V, Hala Pulavati Vaitai, goes on injured reserve. I kind of feel bad for the Lions because their sort of emergence here or expected emergence is a lot of it is about how good their offensive line is, and Big V is a big part of that at the right guard, but he's got a back injury. He's on IR. And the way, I don't know if you heard Dan Campbell talk about it or even if you looked into it more, but they made it seem like it's going to be more than just the 4 weeks, or that it's got potential to be longer than 4 weeks.
In fact, he didn't rule out surgery, so that sucks for him. This came out of, I don't know if it happened in practice. That's disappointing. He, in his first year, he got hurt. He had turf toe. I'm told Matt Patricia had this deal where they had the offensive lineman, at least the lineman, they may have had other players do extra work, and he wound up in a non-part of practice. It might have been after practice. He got hurt. He hurt his toe, and it lingered for basically the entire season. So yeah, it's too bad. Now here's another note: Tommy Kramer, his backup, got added to the injury report on Wednesday. It flared up on him, and as one pro personnel source told me from around the league, he goes, Philly probably would want Tommy Kramer to play because he's without the injury, of course. He's stiff, not athletic. He's basically a guy who should be on a practice squad. Now, this is one person's opinion, so I can't speak for 50 people.
Right.
This guy knows the pro players very well. That he goes, he's very surprised that he won a backup job. Now, if Kramer can't play, they're going to go to Logan Stenberg, who's out of Kentucky, who's their last man standing. They run out of guards. Right. Now, here's another problem. So speaking of running out of interior people, if Frank Ragnow can't play, and he didn't play against the Eagles, I don't think last year, he had a finger injury. They would have to go to Evan Brown, who has started, and they because they're really low on interior linemen, they claim Drew Forbes from waivers off of Cleveland. Right. Now, Jonah Jackson's really good. Their left guard, he's terrific. Ragnow is really good when he's healthy. Yep. I was on John Hanson's show Thursday night, and Greg Cosell said Penny Sewell struggled mightily in pass pro last year. So much better run. And remember, he's really a natural left tackle. But, he's doesn't have the longest arms in the world. Some people thought he should play guard. Yeah. So, look, the Eagles have a very good advantage here. Yeah. In fact, I'm not even sure they were 100% committed to Tommy Kramer playing, even if he was healthy, because again, Campbell said in the press conference he was going to tinker with a few different lineups, and he did mention maybe even moving Sewell to right guard and playing their backup tackle at right tackle as an option too. So it sounded like from the very start that they were wavering. Well, not waver. They just weren't sure what their best 5 was going to be, and they were going to use practice to kind of figure that out. It's funny. They completely do the opposite of Stoutland. He just is not like moving guys around. He'd rather just go with the primary backup, right, which is Kramer, right. And that's interesting. So Matt Nelson would be the backup man. And the Eagles have an advantage here with their depth and their D line, and Fletcher Cox, and second year in the system, he should be better in it. And then we'll get the Eagles injuries in a minute, but just the better depth they have, and Jordan Davis, obviously, whatever he'll be able to do. Yeah. And this is look at player Eagle fantasy defense this week, folks. I actually have it in one of my fantasy teams. So we got the Eagles injuries, right? So we're pretty much wrapped up all the injury information. Let's get into the nuts and bolts of the breakdown. We'll talk about the Eagles offense against the Lion defense. You raised a point, Adam, that I already wonder about this Eagles offense. You got 4 running backs. Your 4th running back is sort of a guy who had some clout before a bad rookie year last year. That's Trey Sermon. They're all on the 53.
And it makes you wonder, will there be, we already talked about, we know there's going to be more passing. It's going to be an RPO driven offense, but you wonder with 4 running backs if they're going to use more, and if they want to take it easy on Miles Sanders, that would make sense. And does that mean the quarterback himself not as much designed runs, QB runs, in this offense this year? I wonder about that.
Well, it's not that they have to limit Sanders. I'm just saying that they don't need to give his when you've got other guys there.
Right.
Now, obviously they have Sanders in practice. They could tell if he looks normal, but you just don't want to get the hamstring to get tired because he's been out for so long. We'll see what they do. But the thing here is, I don't know that Sermon would play week 1. He just got here. He's got their blocking scheme is more gap than zone. They play both, but whereas the Niners are almost all zone.
Yeah, they like to pound it up the middle. The Eagles do.
And Sermon is not. He's not. It's interesting that they drafted Sermon because he's not natural as a one-cut guy. So we'll see, but he gives them what they want. They've been looking for a back for size. We'd mentioned to start training camp, look for the Eagles to add a back with size by the time the season started. And I'm like, man, they're not really working anyone out. I wonder what they're doing.
Right.
And all of a sudden they got Sermon, then they got Michael Pirine, they just cut off the practice squad. But Sermon is that guy. At some point, he's going to be the guy when it's either short yardage, it's 4-minute, which means when you have a lead in the fourth quarter, pound that rock with a guy with size. And that's why they claimed him off waivers to potentially be that guy. So here's the thing: if he's not active, and they have a lead, which they should in the fourth quarter, theoretically, got a better team than the Lions. You saw what happened last year. Who would be that guy? First game back, Sanders.
Yeah. See, I think they trust Boston Scott to grind out yards. He's not easy to tackle. Like, I know he's not big, and if they're not ready to use Sermon, I think I sense, Adam, I think you do too, that it's more about trust with Miles Sanders in the 4-minute drill. It's about, can this guy hold on to the ball when we need to absolutely secure a win? And you can trust so far. I can only remember one Boston Scott fumble. I remember Kenny Gainwell had one in the fourth quarter earlier, I think against the Raiders. Gainwell had that in the fourth quarter and kind of got in the doghouse after that. But Boston, I think, is the guy that they probably trust most right now to be able to execute that. I'm sure they wish he was a little bit bigger. But that's where I sense the coaching staff is with Miles. I think they would love to be able to let him be the bell cow and carry it 25 times. And they just don't want to see him put the ball on the carpet in a close game.
Yeah, his ball security since he was drafted at times is shaky. Yes, definitely true. Plus, again, it's his first game back. Do you trust him because of the timing? He had not been in a game since last season. So
right,
we'll have to see. It's another interesting dilemma for the coaches, what they do with it and what the rotation is going to be looking like. But and then another thing is, as we kind of look at the matchups here, is to see if Gainwell could regain. He got off to a decent start of camp, still wasn't quite what they were hoping, and then he got the whatever was it, hip injury or something.
Yeah,
came back from it, and I was at the when Sirianni benched him in practice against Cleveland. He had 2 very bad mental errors, and Nick he was public about it. By the way, I'm not talking about something that was not public.
Right.
He made it pretty clear he's got to get his head together, and he apparently did, from what we understand, better in practice to close the last week or so. But again, this is a guy they wanted to have a bigger role. We'll see if it happens.
We will. All right. So, and again, we talk about more passing. I mean, this is a good opportunity to get the passing game going. You've got, for the Lions in the secondary, Amani Oruwariye. That's the Penn State guy, right? Who's
very inconsistent. Yeah.
Good player.
Yeah. Well, he's long. Been a good story in terms of he's not going to wow you with speed,
right?
But he was a 5th round pick, but he is 6'1 3/4, 6'2", that area, and very coachable. He's held himself. There were some games he really got beat badly,
right? And
he handled it mentally, where some guys might get down on themselves. And by the way, this is a big year for him. This is the final year of his rookie deal.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a
But
decent player. I wouldn't call him a star or anything like that, but he can hold
he's
his
okay.
own. But then
Yeah,
you got Jeff Okuda, the very high pick from 2 years
who's
ago, who had a
starting?
bad
Yeah,
rookie year and then was hurt last year. So,
yeah.
if you are Shane Steichen, you kind of want to take your shots now. You got Devontae Smith and you got AJ Brown here. I think you got to take some shots.
So a couple things here. So excuse me, Okuda, they were not going to hand him his job. You know, he tore his Achilles last year. He got hurt the year before. He missed just about all of last season.
Mm-hmm.
And Will Harris was competing against him. And he beat Harris out. I'm told he had a very good camp. It's the best he's. It's interesting. Comes over with Achilles. This is actually the best he's looked as a Lion.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he's a very talented kid, pretty high character kid, competitive. Over 6 feet, another kid who's got some size. And then Mike Hughes will be probably nickel. He was a kickoff returner. You might remember, and a corner for the Vikings. He tore his ACL, was never the same.
Yeah.
Went to Kansas City. They didn't bring him back. But you're absolutely right. You got to come out throwing. Trust Hurts. I'm not saying they got to throw it 80% of the time in the first half, but it should be in the 60s. They definitely, this should not be a run game for them. I know they ran all over them last year, but the matchups tell you. And Ali McNeil's a much bigger factor now. He's a kid that they feel it could be a breakout player.
Right.
Now they have Aiden Hutchinson. Brockers is healthy. Isaiah Buggs came over from the Steelers, who's not a bad run defender. So, yeah, to me, if they should be able to protect, and the NFL's best offensive line, they're healthy there. I expect them to throw the football here.
Right. Now you got to block it up. The Lions have an improved defensive line on paper. You know, obviously they drafted Aiden Hutchinson second overall. He's on one edge. Charles Harris, who I thought had a good year for the Lions last year. Greg Cosell talked about how he finally started to look like a first round pick with his ability to generate pressure on the other end. And then Michael Brockers, a veteran tackle. Aleem McNeil, the kid they drafted last year, the whole Aleem McNeil versus Milton Williams thing. So that's a good front line, but this Eagles offensive line, you know, it's got to be able to handle that. Unless Aiden Hutchinson's, better than we think.
And Aaron Glenn runs a 34 front.
Yep.
Hutchinson and Harris will stand up. There'll be overhangs and in this defense and Aaron Glenn's defense. And the story, for those of you who watched watch Hard Knocks, Malcolm Rodriguez, what they call Rodrigo.
Uh-huh.
Now, of which I love. What a good story. Number 44. He's like a bowling ball. He's not the biggest guy in the world, but man, he's physical.
Right.
Chris Board, I think, they're a nickel team too. Alex Anzalone, you might remember from the blonde hair.
Yeah, from the Saints.
Formerly the Saints, right? He'll cover. Goddard crushed them. In fact, Goddard in that matchup, they only threw the ball. Let's see if I thought I got the numbers. Let me see. They only completed 11 passes because they didn't need to throw it. Goddard caught 6 of them in the 11 completions in that game. He's folks, I'm telling you, he's breaking out. As long as he didn't get hurt. We know he's had injury issues before, but
I'm with you on it, man. I'm with you.
He should kill them in this game.
I can see him having a good 7 to 9 catches this game.
Ooh, 7 to 9. All right, good. So to me here, they'll protect Hurts, no question. The matchups will be there. I don't care what they do, whether they play a lot of man or zone or quarters coverage, which is kind of in vogue now around the National Football League.
Yes.
The bottom line is they can beat any kind of coverage. They know what they're getting. These corners aren't very good. I totally agree with your assessment. You got to go after these guys. And I also, if they trust, because you're right about the trust, if they trust Gainwell, I want to see him on some screens. Let's get the screen game going against these guys.
Yeah. Wouldn't surprise me. I mean, Nick Sirianni kind of shocked everybody in the season opener last year with opening the game with 3 straight. I can't say Nick Sirianni because some of it might have been Jalen Hurts on RPOs, but just reading. But 3 straight passes to Quez Watkins, of all people. 3 straight passes to Quez Watkins. That's how the last year's season opener started.
That was crazy. It's funny. It was like they predetermined before the game, okay, we want to throw it a lot, but we're not going to ask them to throw the ball downfield. We're going to give them easy reads. Cosell said pretty much every throw was one read. Just get it out, get them quick, get it out quickly, get them comfortable, get them accurate. It certainly worked.
Right.
Then Sirianni got carried away the next game. He came out throwing, and it was kind of ugly against the Niners. But I'm fascinated to see, because they've made it clear they want to throw the ball more. We all know this.
Yep.
How much more they do in the first half is in question.
That is a good point. All right, let's move on to the Lions offense versus the Eagles defense. First, want to remind everybody to check out our friends at phlsportsnation.com, enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams. For the fan, by the fan is their motto, so make sure you're checking them out at phlsportsnation.com and on Twitter at phlsportsnation. Let's also pause for a quick word from our other great friends and sponsors, excuse me, including our friends at Sky Motor Cars. And if you head out to Sky Motor Cars in Westchester, PA, make sure you tell them Adam and Geoff sent you. You will get a great deal. Now, Adam, the last time these teams played, again, we talked about the destruction that it was. Jared Goff did not look like a very good quarterback. And I feel like he's sort of become the butt of a lot of jokes since going to the Lions and not having a good year. I think he's actually a pretty decent quarterback when he's protected, because I still remember when he came into the link 2 years ago with the Rams and threw 3 touchdowns to, I think, Tyler Higbee. I mean,
Yeah,
he abused the Eagles in that game.
in the red zone. It was, they crushed them. That was actually in the pandemic year. I remember, because there was no booing because there's no fans in there or whatever,
Right.
So, yeah,
I
Goff,
forgot about that. That's right.
yeah, I just remember that. Did they put cardboard cutouts like they did for the Phillies game?
I think they did. Yeah.
But what happened was last year, boy, Goff really improved in the second half. That's when Amon-Ra St. Brown went off.
Yep.
Second, I think, in the first or second in the NFL in the second half last season in total receptions.
Yep.
Where Anthony Lynn refused to play him. I don't know why. And he went off. And if you watch Hard Knocks, he really has a chip on his shoulder. You get it. The dad, by the way, his dad was a big-time bodybuilder. And his dad would train him in the off season. Interesting story. So, yeah, to me, look, Amon-Ra St. Brown's a good football player, but he's a possession receiver. You don't worry about him. If he catches 9 balls for 90 yards, fine. Right. Just don't get beat over the top. Now, the Eagles have extensive experience against Josh Reynolds. They faced him. I was actually at one of those games. I think it was in L.A.
Well, yeah, he was also at the game 2 years ago, right? When Goff threw all those touchdowns to Higbee. I think Reynolds was on the team.
Yeah, and it didn't work out for him. The Titans thought he just didn't run very well. He was not the player they thought they were getting from the Rams. They cut him. The Lions claimed him and did a good job. He revived his career, got a new deal. And a guy the Eagles have always liked, DJ Chark. Unfortunately, too many injuries, but a good player. Those are the guys. Quintus Cephas is a backup receiver who's a possession guy. But the guys to watch are in this matchup, the guys you worry about particularly are Chark. Because we know, and he's 6'3" range, Slade does occasionally struggle against bigger receivers.
He does. That's true. Now, Chark is big, but he's more kind of lengthy and speedy, right? He's not like physical. I think of him making some downfield catches for the Jaguars more than like fighting someone over the middle, like an A.J. Brown type of receiver, you know?
Yeah.
I see him a little different than that.
He's between 6'3" and 6'4". He can run.
Right.
He's been hurt a lot, but so they've really revamped the receiver. In fact, the guys who played, it's so funny. They started last year as Khalif Raymond, number 11, and then they went with a couple guys that either aren't in the league or are on their practice squad. Now they've completely revamped their receiver core. Now Jameson Williams won't be ready probably until around mid-season, if not a little before that. Who's they traded up for? They're happy to have, who tore his ACL back in January. But the fact of the matter is, they'll have a more competitive unit, and I'm going to be interested to see how they think they could attack the Eagles.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, and I think we'll have to keep our eye on, and it'll be a big subject of the pre and post game on what the Eagles are doing on the back end. As far as is Chauncey Gardner Johnson playing? Is he a safety? Is he inside?
He'll be a
Nickel
safety
more. I
for
mean,
sure.
he'll be a safety, but is he playing free safety or is he playing movement like a robber position? So I'm really kind of looking for. And plus, he just got here, so
Yeah,
I'm sure he's going to play. But
playing.
does he
Yeah,
play the
there's
entire game?
no chance. Right, there's no chance that they have him inactive.
I know that's another thing that they're trying to joke that they're trying to we're not going to really disguise our intention. Wait, you're not going to play the guy you just traded for him?
Well, I mean, not only that, and now if they don't feel comfortable playing with a lot of plays, that's fine.
Right.
But you can't. Marcus App's okay. They like him. We know that. We've talked about this for almost 2 years now. He's been a really good story of development.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going with Reed Blankenship as a starter. Come on.
You're not going with Reed Blankenship. You got Josiah Scott, who may not even be able to play. You got Kavon Wallace. That's it. Andre Chauchere isn't even on the team. He's on the practice squad right now. So no, of course you're going to play Chauncey Gardner Johnson. Question is, how much can you play him? How much does he know? Or do they have to kind of be a little bit basic in the first game because they can't do everything they want to do until CGJ gets kind of caught up to everything?
Yeah, exactly. But when he's a matchup guy. There's so many things you could do with him. Now, the thing that you would worry about, the Eagles were the worst in the National Football League covering tight ends statistically. Most yardage and touchdowns.
Right.
Total production terrible. It's funny, back when the late great Jim Johnson was coaching the Eagles defense.
Mm-hmm.
As good as he was, they were historically bad against tight ends. I don't know why. And Hawkins had got him last year, but it was an afterthought because they were just throwing all the time, and the Eagles were happy to give up production against him because they were killing him.
Right.
But that's one thing in this matchup, though, that would worry me, is Hawkinson running wild a little bit if the game's close, in particular, because who are you gonna like? Here's the question. Okay, moving this forward here. Okay, so Kaiser White probably will be their. I would think would be their coverage linebacker. I don't know if Dean's ready yet.
Yeah, I would think so too. I think Edwards and Kaiser White are your nickel linebackers, and if they play some dime, then yeah, it's probably just Kaiser White. Yep. Now the big question that we have, and we've talked about this, and I don't know how many other people are really trying to talk about this, but this is some real X's and O's here. Is that when you have overhang players like a Hassan Reddick or a Josh Sweat, who are mostly pass rushers and not going to cover, the opponent is going to try to play action. They're going to try to pretend to run on and then catch, off guard passing against overhang players that aren't used to dropping back. So the seams and the comeback routes, right, those become really interesting routes for an offense, because if you think that the overhang guys who are in coverage, or if they're just straight rushing, there's nobody there to cover, you got an opportunity to exploit those the outer flats and areas like that.
We saw that when you and I were at the Dolphins practice, the first one, because they didn't practice the second day with them, but the first practice we saw, I remember you pointed out to me, you were like, well, look at that area, look at the vacated area, because the Eagles were running their defense then. So that to me, because in the games you don't run you just run plays. You're not running, you're not really running what you normally would run.
Right.
And that's the thing. Reddick is not good in coverage. I know Gannon said he's excellent in coverage. I don't know that anyone's ever coached him and said that I've talked to, but that's another story.
That would be a first. Right.
But okay, whatever. Let's just see. We'll get notes from the coaching tape also after they play this game against, and if Detroit exploits them there, because that to me, by the way, DeAndre Swift, it's phenomenal as a pass catcher.
Right.
Jamal Williams is the banger inside. He's the power back when they short yardage. He can also pass protect. Swift is really gifted. He's a guy you saw Deuce Staley in Hard Knocks. He coaches him hard because they know he's special, but he gets hurt a lot. He's explosive in the pass game. I'm glad we brought this up. This is an area where Detroit could get them. Yeah,
that is an area. And by the way, to your Gannon point, I mean, sometimes the lies are easy to decide. I mean, if Hassan Reddick could get you 12.5 sacks a year and was excellent in coverage, then he'd be signed to a 6-year, some $1 billion, $50 million contract by now. I mean, come on. People don't let those
But
kind of
he's
guys
there
just
to
run.
listen. He's
I
there
know
to
he's there to
rush the
rush the
quarterback.
passer.
Yeah,
Exactly. Exactly.
yeah. I understand. You have to. There, 80-90% of the time he'll be a pass rusher, but there are times he's going to have to be in coverage. I get that.
Yeah.
But if he doesn't use it in the right way, it's going to be ugly. It's just, this is not what you're paying $15 million a year. I'm going to trust Gannon.
Mm-hmm.
I know did we put out a poll? Was that on our, I think we did, didn't we?
Yes, on Patreon for those about the biggest kind of curiosity going into. No, I'm sorry, I did that one on Twitter
On
from
Twitter, yeah.
Inside the Birds. Yeah, who is under more pressure this year, or whose performance is more central to Eagles' success, Jalen Hurts or Jonathan Gannon?
It's to me though. I know most will probably disagree, but I'll explain why. I think it's more on Gannon
Mm-hmm.
because Jalen Hurts, he just handles this stuff so well.
Mm.
He deflected the Watson stuff really well. He lets it just go right over his head. I think he's just really good at it. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
it's his parents have helped him being a son of a football coach. Who knows?
Right.
So he's handled this stuff well. Whereas Gannon needs to prove it to me. I kind of look. They've done everything. The front office has done everything they can for both these people. But with Gannon, I know they didn't have a lot of talent. He had a coach of Steve Nelson's limitations. I understand all that.
Mm-hmm.
But man, he was underwhelming. He was not aggressive. I need to see. I've never seen him be aggressive. And if you went and watched the tape of every decent quarterback they went against, they failed every single time. It was terrible
Every
against every
time,
quarterback.
every single time, no doubt about it. TJ Hawkinson, a player to watch for the Lions. I mean, he caught a bunch of passes last year in the game, although they were down by so much they had to. But again, a guy who can kind of probably hit the Eagles in that areas of the zone that might be either void or not well covered because of what they have going on with overhang players.
That's the first thing I'm going to watch actually in that
Mm-hmm.
game. And I'll use, for those of you who have Verizon Fios, the slow motion is actually really good. Hit pause and hit the forward button, and you could do it frame by frame, or you could do it frame by frame if you want, or you could just let it run.
Mm-hmm.
And there's certain things you could see on TV copy, and I'm going to look at that because I'm just very curious because I know that they're going to run a lot of Vic Fangio stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just curious how things are going to change this year. I know they're going to run a 3rd-4 front, which with 2 overhangs, we know that's not going to change. But how multiple they are, how they change up their coverages, it's just fascinating. We're going to learn a lot in this game, and it's not like they're not facing last year's Lions team. This is more talented at the wide receiver position. I'm looking forward to see what they do with these guys.
Same here. All right, you ready to get into our predictions? First of the year.
Yes, did we cover? Yeah, and we got more stuff, by the way, for the pregame. Yeah, we got more stuff for the pregame show. Yes, I am ready.
Okay. First, we will do this game, and then we'll go really quickly through some of our NFL season predictions. So, who wins this game, Adam?
I've got it. I'm a little bit. See, I should have learned my lesson from the Thursday night game. How sloppy it was, how choppy and sloppy it was. The Ram Bill game. It was it seemed like their time was off. I understand defenses are ahead of the offenses early on. I'm probably going to be wrong about this because again, it was not as high scoring that Bills game as it should. It was the over-under was 51.5, and it was very choppy.
Yeah.
I see. I've got it. Eagles 30-20 over the Lions. Closer game this time. I just think that I'm just going by the matchups. The Eagles offense versus the Lions secondary. Tracy Walker is a good safety. We didn't mention he's really the only true good defensive back that they have that's proven. We've got a contract extension, but the Eagles should clean up. They'll be able to protect, and they're going to clean up against the secondary. When they throw it, they will be successful.
Yeah, we're kind of on the same path. I have the Eagles winning. I have a 10-point win. I believe I have Eagles 26-16 over the Lions.
That's 26-16, only 42 points. Okay.
Yeah, only 42 points. I forgot to mention what the line was on the game from our friends at Bet Rivers. Head on over to Bet Rivers and place your bets. You'll see that the Eagles right now, as we record this, are 4-point favorites on the road in Detroit. So you and I both have them covering with an over-under of 48.5. So I'm taking the under on that.
You know what? I'm predicting 50 points, but I was so like alarmed watching that game
Mm-hmm.
Thursday night. I'm like so sloppy. The timing was
Yeah, and I'm buying a
awful.
little bit of what the Lions are selling as far as being an improved team and what they've got on defense and that offensive line, even with some of the injuries. And I think they'll be better. Like you said, 7, 8 wins is within their
A
realm.
lot. Yeah,
I think they'll be more representative of a team that's out there giving it. I mean, they were tough. I know the Eagles cleaned their clocks, but in almost every other game they played, they were pretty competitive, even against some. I think they had a lead against the Ravens, even with Lamar playing in the fourth quarter and blew it at the last.
Oh, the kick. Yeah,
Heck,
that
yeah,
was
yeah.
they got cheated. Actually, the ref screwed that one up. But yeah, they're over under 6.5. I think they're in the 6 to 7 range, so I think that's pretty fair.
Yeah.
But they're a fun team, and I've really enjoyed Hard Knocks. It's the first time I've enjoyed it in years. It's the access is pretty. It got kind of stale.
Yeah, I've actually never watched Hard Knocks.
You've never seen it?
I mean, I've seen bits and pieces, but I've never sat down and watched Hard
Really?
Knocks
Oh,
from
this
the.
has been a good. Deuce has been awesome. Him and Aaron Glenn and Dan Campbell.
Yeah.
It's actually the drama has been pretty good, and Campbell's hilarious. He's also very emotional.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's just that like we are immersed in football 24/7, 365 from July to, past the draft. I mean, basically till the start of June. And so I just sort of decompress once June and July hit or July hits. And that's usually when Hard Knock starts, right? July?
Yeah, actually August. Yeah, it
Oh,
starts
all right,
starting
because
after.
it's training
Yeah,
camp. Yeah.
yeah.
I just decompress.
Hmm.
I don't
Okay.
know.
Well, no, what I do is I watch them now. I binge watch them all in like one night,
Uh-huh.
and it was actually good to learn about Rodrigo. That was kind of cool,
Yeah.
and just the Aiden Hutchins family, what they went through, kind of leading up to draft.
Yeah,
It was
I
really
know
good.
it's well produced and there are really
It is.
good stories and angles and it's a
Yeah.
great sounds like a great show. I don't know. I don't watch a whole lot of TV to begin with. I literally only watch like reruns of King and Queens and and
King of Queens. Do you
King
know
of
that
Queens,
I went to,
Seinfeld, 2.5 Men.
of course,
I watch some
I,
stupid ass shows,
wife and I
man.
back in 2000.
Uh-huh.
We didn't want to go. We're at Universal in LA. We were just taking a West Coast trip,
Right.
and they reeled us in at Universal. They pulled us in for a filming of King of Queens.
Uh-huh.
So I saw the show, and it was the first time. Actually, you could hear me. I did this on purpose. I don't remember exactly which one it was, but I did on the laugh. You could hear me on the laugh track. I did on purpose because I want to get on there. I was such a schmuck. My wife really was not happy with me.
Uh-huh.
It's like, ha ha! Like I did a laugh, like literally immediately to get on there. I'm such a schmuck. But the cool thing is, the food was terrible. They didn't. It's not like they gave us the craft services. They reeled us in. But the cool thing was though, just we didn't know it was going to be 6 hours.
Uh-huh.
But just watching a sitcom being shot is super cool.
That is super cool. All right, let's do real quick our NFL predictions. We'll just do NFC East. Who did you have winning the NFC East?
Oh,
I already
Eagles.
know, but I want you to tell.
I
You have
felt
the
that
Eagles.
whenever the draft was over, I'm like, I'm going to pick the Eagles. I didn't want to put it out there yet. Then
Uh-huh.
I wanted to wait. But I just and when we did the Cosell series of the NFC East, I mean, he agreed with us.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not gonna. I mean, Dallas is still good. They've got some real issues on the offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
They have a very average secondary. It certainly could be beat, but they have a very good pass rush. They're well coached.
Right.
But the Eagles on paper. Now I know we just had AAA. Now we're in the majors. Now we got to see how these guys come together.
Mm-hmm.
But on paper, they're to me a landslide favorite to win it. They should have been. In fact,
Landslide.
well, the funny thing is, for me, they are. But Vegas does not agree with me. Up to a week ago, Dallas was like minus 200 to start training camp. Now that they're like minus, maybe I have to look, maybe 140. Clearly, the money's starting to go to the Eagles. I get that. We all know that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's fascinating to see what this hype has just been ridiculous.
Right. Okay, so you have the Eagles winning the NFC East. Give me your Super Bowl.
I've got it Bucks Rams, and the Rams lost Thursday night, so it's not good.
Bucks Rams in the championship. Yep.
Yeah,
in
they're off.
NFC
It's only one game
championship.
though.
Right.
Yep. And I got the Bills. I got the Bills Broncos, and yeah,
I
I'm
like
picking
that. Bills Broncos. That's I mean, Bills. Yeah, but I think Broncos in the AFC Championship game is not a popular pick. I mean, people think they'll be
Yeah.
better, so that's a cool pick by you.
Yeah, so I picked the Broncos. I know Scott Farrell was killing me on Sports Grid, picking the Broncos to win the AFC West.
Uh-huh.
And I got the Bucks over the Bills.
I tell you, I'm scared of the Bucks for all the stuff that they're going through right now with Brady. I'm scared.
I get it. All these stories,
Uh,
Giselle now has moved out or of their house. All these reports
Yep.
out there in gossip land, but I'd never count out Brady.
And your MVP of the year?
My offensive, okay,
No,
my
MVP. Just MVP. Yeah.
Josh Allen.
Good job. Excellent. That's a nice pick right there. And you can find the rest of Adam's picks on our InsideTheBirds.com story. I will tell you mine.
Yep.
Not all of them. We'll just give you a brief. I have the Cowboys winning the NFC East.
Oh,
I do have the Eagles making the playoffs.
back off. Why? Why?
Because no team has won this division back to back. First of all, no, I'm not. Forget just the weird stats. Right. I was about to say some teams got to repeat. Once. I mean, it's been 17
happen,
years.
Right? You got it someday, right?
Yeah,
sure.
I don't think Dallas's secondary is as sort of sketchy as you think it is, but I think it's pretty good. I think I think they have the best quarterback, the best pass rusher, and the best offensive and defensive coordinators in the division. And I don't even think that that's arguable. So I went with them, even though I agree the Eagles 1-53 are better. I think Dallas top heavy with their talent at elite positions. And look, I think the Jason Peters signing is actually good. Peters, if anybody's actually watched him play in Chicago last year, played well.
You know, I did talk to someone of the Bears. They said he definitely could still play.
Yeah.
He was okay. He's obviously not the athlete that he once was because his reflexes are really struggle. Like he doesn't have the flexibility or the reaction like he could, but he's serviceable. This kid, Tyler Smith, it's a major project. I cannot wait. I'm playing the Bucks fantasy defense. I have him in every league I'm in. No, 5 out of the 7 leagues I'm in. I'm all in on the Bucks defense this year. They tell me Akeem Hicks looks like he looks great.
Right.
So if he's that good, we'll see. They got to hold up. They were brutalized in the secondary with injury. All 4 of their starters in the secondary were hurt last year. But
yes,
I'm looking forward to seeing what they do.
Well, I do have the Eagles making the playoffs. I have them as the second wild card team. I have my NFC championship is the Rams beating the Cowboys. My AFC championship is the Chargers beating the Bills. And then I have the Chargers beating the Rams in the Super Bowl. May have to
Chargers. Whoa, an all LA Super Bowl.
I do. I have an all LA Super Bowl. Exactly.
Too bad. You know, it would have been great if because they played at SoFi last year.
I know isn't that funny? Yeah, and I have Justin Herbert as the MVP.
Nice. I know you love Herbert. Everyone does.
I do.
He fooled the league because he was a see it and throw it guy like Dak in college, and he's shown that you could learn how to throw with anticipation. Wow.
Yeah, and by the way, neither of us picked the correct division winner last year. I picked.
I know
Washington,
we're both wrong.
the Giants. So for all we know, what do we know, right? So you want to say, "Oh, Mosher, I can't believe it." I'll be the first to admit. Who knows? So that's good stuff. All right, you can find the rest of our predictions and Andrew DeCecco's all his predictions as well. I mean, we did comeback player of the year, executive of the year. We got a rookie of the year, offensive of the year. We got all of it on InsideTheBirds.com. So make sure you go check out our full story to find out all of our predictions. That's going to be it for this episode of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles Intel. Big thanks to our producer, Tyler Strasser, always doing a great job. And of course, as always, we thank you for flying with us inside the birds.